Hello and welcome to C-Suite Secrets. I'm your host, Heather Parsons. I'm a serial entrepreneur, fractional CFO, and a business strategist. I've spent years juggling business, family life, all while helping entrepreneurs scale, optimize cash flow, and build real financial success. On our show, we bring you real conversations with founders, executives, and operators about what really moves the needle in their business. No fluff, no filler, just smart systems and strategies that work, and insights that you can put to use in your business right away. With that, let's dive right in. Today, we have Chris Allaire on the show. He's the founder and CEO of Verity. Chris, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I would love to jump in and talk a little bit about your journey as becoming an entrepreneur and how you started your company.
So I'm a serial chronic entrepreneur. So there's no. It's one of those things. I think I was raised by a very entrepreneurial type family. My father was self-employed, so I always saw, the angles in business and things like that. So I think it was always kind of in my blood. So where my entrepreneurial instincts really kicked in is when I had the opportunity a long time ago to build a startup office in San Francisco back in late 1999, 2000 in the staffing world. And literally boots on like nobody there, opened up the front doors, wires still hanging from the ceiling, and grab the phone and kick open a business from scratch, smile and dial. And I really just enjoyed it. And this idea of having no, just kind of a green field in front of you to make your own tracks, where you're not, nobody knows who you are, and it's a all risk, all reward. And I really enjoyed it. So, traveled around the country working for various different companies or divisions of companies, opening up offices, opening up brand new cities, new companies from scratch. And then finally in 2014, got kind of the whole, a lot of entrepreneurs, as we say, kind of doing it for other people. And I could really see what wasn't working. And I didn't want to just keep going down the same path of defending somebody else's name. So I opened up Verity, sat down with a laptop on my dining room table, liquidated my 401k, and started reaching out to all the people I know. So the company is Verity. It's named after, at the time, was my 6-month-old daughter at the time, who now is 12 years old. So kind of that, again, all risk, hopefully all reward. And just did what I did and basically just put my head down, contacted the people that I had known, contacted people who I'd done business with, the people who trust me, kind of used my name and my reputation, and really focused on what my purpose I wanted to build, the why I wanted to build it, the culture I wanted to build. And I just stayed true to that throughout my journey. So it's been 11 years. Verity has been named the best staffing and recruiting company to work for in North America twice. We were runner-up once. So kind of some fun awards and accolades over there to really kind of show what building a purposeful organization is really all about. So that's a kind of brief summary of my story.
I love that. I love that, I'm a bootstrapper as well. I love talking to other folks who have done things like cashed in their 401k and gone all in. That's definitely part of my story as well. Just looking to live or die by your own sword, essentially. I think you're either made for it or you're not. And, I love talking to other entrepreneurs who have persevered and made it work and continue to do it. So one question I also have for you, you talked about like being a purpose-driven company. I'd love to talk a little bit about that and what that means to you and how you see that applied in other companies.
So my thing about being purpose-driven, I guess if you want to call it, is about being a people-first organization. So I fortunately, but unfortunately, worked for organizations that treated people like garbage, and you really felt pretty terrible. Monday, that case of the Mondays, right? Sunday night was awful for years for me because you're like, oh my God, I have to go to work tomorrow. Like, what am I going to do? So I always learned. I just really remembered what it was like. There was a break in my career where I was able to work for one of Fortune magazine's top 100 companies to work for. And that really taught me a lot about working with people who genuinely love their job and love the company they work for, And it was such an eye-opening thing. And it was really just kind of common sense. You're like, wow, why doesn't anybody get this? Or why doesn't everybody get this? And at the end of the day, common sense just is not so common. So when I was building my company, that was one of the core foundational pillars in what I wanted to, I'm like, I want to build the best company in New York to work for. At the time when we were in Midtown Manhattan. So, for me, it was team-driven environment, communication, collaboration, together everyone achieves more, all for one for all. Really that idea of teams win championships, not MVPs. So I don't need the best, I don't need the most valuable player. I need the best team on the ground, on the field, call it what you will, doing their job together better than anybody else. And that's how we're going to win this thing. I wanted to build, my biggest, again, the best company to work for, where people showed up to work every day and they just genuinely loved their job. And the third part was service. We're in a service-oriented industry. And I said, if you're going to be a service-oriented business, out-service your competition. So our job is to provide an unparalleled experience with everybody we interact with. And so by staying focused on unparalleled experience, teamwork, communication, collaboration, and creating an environment where people just want to come to work, I knew everything else after that was going to work out. The money and the fame and all the stuff that we get for being on podcasts, right? Both
Yep.
Both people who listen to me, those are all byproducts of doing everything else correct. So in my opinion, and for me, driven by purpose, that's what I like. That's what I was going after.
I love the way you're talking about that. I think most people can relate to the being at a place where people are definitely not first. So it's refreshing to talk to you and some of the other entrepreneurs who really focus and lean in on that. One of the things that you mentioned that really hits home for me is talking about having the team and building out that team. It's I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of really, really smart people. And the ones who have been the best to be around are the ones that they know they're smart, but they don't need to tell everybody else they're smart. And they can usually fit on any seat on that bus, just as long as we're succeeding and moving forward. So I think that's great what you're doing. I would also love to hear a little bit about how you identify some of those key people to bring into a team, especially if you're looking at what they're capable of rather than some of their past accomplishments.
So I'm glad you said that, because you have no idea what you're going to get when you hire somebody.
True.
So their past experience sounds fantastic. And I teach people when they're interviewing, I try the best I can with this. But you think about this, like if I'm hiring a UPS driver and they may have the perfect driving history, but their second day on the job, they get in a car accident. So you have no idea what's going to happen when you're hiring somebody. Again, it's risk, and every hire is going to be a risk. So personally, what I've found over the years of probably hiring, managing, I think probably over 200 people in my career, is I hire genuine human beings who are good people, great communicators, authentic by nature, have a good character to them. And being in the people business, and that's what recruiting is, it's 100% people type business. I was like, this is what's going to win the game, because people want to deal with other human beings that are just awesome people that they feel that they can trust, that they want to be around. So for me, I looked for people who had minimally a B2B type of background and experience. They knew how to construct an intelligent email. They understand the corporate world. They understand business, right? But then after that, I don't care where you came from, whether it was real estate. I had a guy that worked with me for years, was an attorney prior to this. Some was financial analysts. I mean, there's people that work for me from all walks of life that have never touched recruiting before. But I can teach you recruiting. I'm not worried about that. But I can't teach you how to be a good human. I can't teach you work ethic. I can't teach you honesty, transparency. I can't teach you all those things. All those things are what's going to get you better at your job. But closing deals and all the other stuff that comes involved with it happens easier because everybody involved with what's happening feels that like, wow, this is a really good, that's the experience. So like, wow, this is very open, it's honest, it's transparent, it's authentic. Like, this is great. And I've coined a phrase years ago called genuosity. And I said, what I want to do is bring a certain amount of genuosity to the table with all this transactions to make, looking for a job, not this horrible, awful experience that most people want to paint it with. Or like hiring person, like, oh my God, we got to hire someone, we got to interview and onboard and all this. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that bad. Or looking for a job doesn't have to be like, oh my God, I got to get another job. It doesn't have to be like that. So if you're teamed up with the right people, the rest of it, you turn around, you're like, looking for a job kind of sucks, but you guys made it really, actually genuinely kind of fun. You managed everything for me. I ended up getting exactly what I wanted anyways. Like, this was awesome. So hopefully I won't have to talk to you again for a couple of years, but in a couple of years, I hope to talk to you again. So that's the whole mentality that I was trying to bring to the world of recruiting.
One of the things you said there that I think is really great is continuing that relationship, because I think, especially as we look at people's career, they're rarely linear. So it sounds like what you're really trying to build out is this culture where you don't just touch a person once, but maybe whenever it's time for them, they've outgrown their organization, you're really there to kind of help them with the next job or the next one, not just, hey, I'm going to touch this person once and then move on. And the same for, your clients and customers as well, the folks who need those people in their organization.
Yes, relationships are everything in this business. I learned that a long time ago because it's who you know and when you know them. And if you're constantly talking to the same kind of circle of people, they just know you. And the nice thing is once they get to know you, and once you get to know them, working together becomes pretty simple after that. So yeah, I'm still to this day. The relationships I have with some people are, they go back 17, 18 years. I've been dealing with and talking to the same people. And, some of them, I talked to somebody I've known for that long the other day, and he was calling me. He was like, oh, hey, buddy. It was like, oh, I got to help Chris out. He's my friend. He needs my help right now. And I was like, wow. Like, it's a great feeling to know that you can have that type of impact on people.
For sure.
And maintain it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're working with leaders in all of these organizations, what are one or two things that you hear consistently right now on what they're trying to do in their organization and the direction they're trying to lean towards?
Okay, well, there's two different areas of that where, depending on which road you want to go down, because there's the staffing and recruiting and hiring road, and then there's the tech road, and those roads kind of intersect. So, and as you know, a lot of what's going on right now in today's ecosystem is heavy investor driven by investments into AI, automation, LLMs, whatever, generative AI and all those terms around the giant umbrella of where we are. And so there's a lot of confusion right now. There's a lot of, I feel like there's a map, but you only know where you are. And then there's just infinite number of roads that are sprawling out into the fog, and some of these things are crossing and some of them aren't. And you really don't know what to expect out of anything that's going on anymore. So the landscape on recruiting and hiring right now is really interesting for two reasons. Number one, not really sure exactly what people are looking for. They know what they want someone to do and what they think they need, but a lot of this is still kind of uncharted waters. So they're hoping that someone can just come in and, meet all 18 levels of expectation, that like, if I could draw a person or, this is what they would look like. So, this, like, that person has 3 arms. Like, I know that third arm is going to come in really handy when we finally get to there. It's like, so you need me to go find a 3-arm, like it's kind of tough. So there's a lot of unforeseen, from a recruiting standpoint, just like we don't know exactly what's where we're going, what we need right now. The other thing um, is the land of recruiting is very interesting right now, mostly because the tech world in general got flipped on its head back in late fourth quarter of 2022, going into 2023. And there was definitely a bubble that needed to be corrected, and the bubble got corrected, but it landed pretty with a pretty good thud, and it put a lot of very talented but unfortunately very overpaid people out of work. And a lot of those people are now on the market trying to figure out what's going on, trying to figure out what's next, trying to figure out what the next hot thing is. And AI, unfortunately, has come into the mix now as, believe it or not more of an obstacle for companies trying to find the right people, because now you can take your resume and take a job description, you can dump into a chatbot of your choice, and will spit out the perfect looking resume that matches all the keywords, and then now so a bot's applying for you to 100 different jobs, and then on the recruiting end, they're trying to solve all their problems by implementing some type of bot that's going to read a resume that a bot wrote, and so the bot's taking the bot, and it's basically you get like a tic-tac-toe game with no players. So you get two bots just arguing over each other, and then like you get 100 resumes, and all 100 resumes look amazing. Let's interview all 100 people. And then so you got internal people who are screening and sourcing, et cetera, whatever they're doing, just like arms in the air going, I have no idea what I'm looking at now, or if any of these people actually represented to us are what they say they are, if their background is what it is. And so and then trying to go through that is a headache. And I call it's genuine, like resume fatigue. There's only and I've been doing this for almost 30 years. And so I can look at resumes pretty quickly and kind of like, I know what I'm looking for. I can glance them. I'm like, okay, cool. But even now and then, like there's only so long you can do that before you're like, oh my God, my eyes are bleeding. I got to stop this project. Right. And then, but you got to do it though, but you got to set up interviews. So you're going to miss people. And so now you've got all these people on paper that look great, and you're setting up interviews, and you're trying to pass them to the hiring managers, and the hiring managers are talking to them. And the people that are on these interviews haven't done half of what the resume says because a bot wrote it, and there's frustration around the whole thing. So as you know, what happens then is the CTOs and VPs of engineering are like, we can't find anybody. This is ridiculous. It's been 4 months. I'm seeing nobody. I have a recruiter that I know that can fill this job for me in a week, but it's going to cost this much money. And as the CFO, it's like, we're not spending that much money on this because there's 100 people in the inbox in the pipeline. And then it's like, well, that's, your internal recruiter is going to go through those people and set them. And then so it's this hierarchy, this just weird struggle of hierarchy right now, where it's either it's that purple squirrel, pull a rabbit out of your hat, go get me someone or go whittle your own person and deliver them to me out of the factory. Or I've reached critical mass of frustration and annoyance where I just want to hire an engineer that knows this technology so we can move on and do our projects.
Absolutely. And as I think back to trying to hire folks in technology and being a part of that on the finance side of things, you're getting squeezed from both ends, right? So your leadership always wants money back if you haven't spent it. However, you still have projects that need to get done. So trying to figure out that mix of, okay, what are the FTEs that we need to bring in versus the contractors is always a hard thing to do, because contractors up front are a little bit more costly, but usually it's a great way to figure out, okay, people have actually done what they said on their resume. We can try them out, see if they actually fit the culture of the organization, and then go from there. I'd love your thoughts on how do you try to help organizational leaders determine that mix, and when is the right time to go with more of a contractor or a consultant rather than dealing with those 100 resumes and trying to fill that role internally?
I love handling recruiting from a business problem, not from a technology problem. So a lot of times what will happen is someone will get in there and be like, oh, great, what kind of skills are you looking for and how many years experience? I love to start off like, what are you building? Like, what's your goal of what you want to do? Why are you looking for this person? What is, What are you building? Who's using it? And why is this going to be important to you? Okay, great. What's the technology platform you're working on that this person needs to plug into? And then I kind of move backwards going, all right, great. So from a skill set standpoint, you need someone that has boom, boom, boom. But if I understand the why someone's hiring, then I can start talking to them about like, I'll be honest with you, like what you need right now, you could slam dunk this thing with one or two contractors, save yourself a lot of time, a lot of headache, and get this project up and running quickly. You don't have to engage in a massive consulting firm. You don't have to go through the headache of interviewing, anywhere from 2 to 15 people, then offers, then acceptance, then onboarding, and then all this type of stuff. Versus like, if this is what you need and this is what you want, just hire a contractor. Especially when it comes to architecture or high level programming. Versus like we're building the first iteration or V3 of an MVP right now, and you can see and you can hear the difference in long-term thought growth, that area of the business problem and the business need. Then it's like, okay, cool, let's go for that, let's go for that full-time hire. But then when people are hiring full-time, I always remind people that, remember, you're hiring them attitude and aptitude on their ability to fit into your organization when they start. Just because they did this over here doesn't mean it's going to be the same thing over here. The other thing is when you're bringing somebody on, if they've done the exact same thing over here, and now they're going to do the exact same thing over here, what's their genuine level of interest? Like, if there's no upward mobility, why would they be leaving that old job just to go do the exact same thing over here for this job? Like, why are you going to leave, Toyota to go work at Ford, right? It's just, you still,
Right.
yeah, that's probably a bad example. Like, there's 2 cars that just came to the top of my head. So you're like, I'm still building cars. Like, why don't I just stay where I am and try to go through upward trajectory? So now you have to find somebody who's looking for a challenge, an upward trajectory. They want to do something different. They want to grow their career. They want to grow their skill set. So you've got to hire, it's weird to say this, but I know what you think you need. You've got to hire just a level below that in order to get someone who's going to come in eager, chomping at the bit, thinking long-term like you are. That's a lot of the times. And then when we're talking about budgets, I've heard some obscure budgets on some weird people where like they need to hire 10 folks and they've got, this much money to spend. And I'm like, you don't need 10 people, man. I'm like, I can get you 3 people that are way higher than the 10 people you need to hire, but are way better, immediate, available now, come in and knock this thing out in half the time. And those 3 people added up are going to be about 10 to 25% less than the budget you're going to be spending on the 10 people. Oh, and you have to do less interviewing, less onboarding. And I've had clients look at me and say like, wow, that's a really interesting thing. Who do you have in mind? And then I've introduced them to somebody and it's like, okay, this is awesome. So when you understand the business case, I can kind of help people identify work backwards. And again, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. So I've seen everything from all the .coms to all the busts to all the financials to digital books to every CMS that you can think of out there, how these things have been built. And I've been on the agency side for the entire time. So I'm not going to say I've seen it all because no one's seen it all, but I've seen a lot. And I really understand the way structures and how teams can be built. And I really try to guide people towards what is what's more like just a good or a good decision for them. And even if sometimes it's actually a lot of times it has no financial or impact for us on a positive way. It's mostly, I'm like, if you just do it this way, I think you're gonna have better results. I've probably just walked myself out of thousands and thousands of dollars to do what I do, but I don't know. I think it's, something to think about. So
Yep.
that's been my approach on it.
I think your approach is a lot better in the long run. Even if you miss out on a few $1,000s and not bringing in that full headcount of 10 that they're asking for, I think the repeat business that comes along with just being a good human, like you mentioned earlier, and doing the right thing and steering people in the right direction pays for itself tenfold. So, one other thing that you talked about, and this is really goes back to business 101 and why a lot of times in an organization middle managers really struggle with their finance person as well, is it all goes back to that business case you're talking about. because we're trying to not just look at, okay, we have this project that we need to do right now, but how does this impact us over the next 2 to 3 to 5 years? Not just this one project. Is this somebody who we can use to do other things? Because usually most organizations have some sort of a roadmap. With AI, everything is definitely changing and everybody's trying to pivot and figure that out. But there's a roadmap there. So when it comes to bringing on those full time people, just from a pure finance perspective and going back to that business case, it's a lot around what's the longevity here, not just one and done. So I like your approach a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So
Yeah,
again, the same way. It's like if you need to build a product that sells to make money. And if, but when you're doing that, there's a cost associated. So again, kind of you mentioned earlier, what is the ROI that you're going to get when you're bringing people on board?
for sure. So as you're talking to these leaders, and these organizations that you work with on a regular basis, what are one or two things that they can maybe shift how they think about or do a little differently to move the needle for their organization today?
I think people understanding what is critical for someone to walk in the door and be successful today, not tomorrow, not a year from now, or not 2 years from now, but because everything is changing by the minute. Like by the time by the time you and I are off this call, we're going to have a new tariff out. There's going to be a new LLM that sits out. Another chatbot's going to be released. Everything is changing so quickly right now that we can't. There's nobody's got a crystal ball. So I would look at people and be like, I understand what you're building and how it's going, but if you need someone who is agile, who is adaptable, you need someone who is quick thinking. You need someone who's going to be, can pivot like as soon as something happens, because that's our landscape right now. That's where things are. And again, if you can go back, like if you read articles about, that were 18 months ago versus articles that were 6 months ago versus articles that were 2 weeks ago, I mean, there's no continuity and there's no consistency in any of this. So if you think anything today is going to be the same in 6 months from now or a year from now, there's no way. So don't hire, like if you're going to look at someone right now, take a look at someone who is genuine curiosity, intelligence. If it's a hands-on technical person, make sure they know multiple technologies so they can adapt to different environments. Do they have intellectual curiosity? Are they doing things on their own? Are they playing with things? What have they developed? And then after that, let them see what they can do. So keep your expectations realistic. Don't, create this image of the perfect, whatever. I call it in sports. It's like, oh, we want the prototype quarterback. 6'6", 250 pounds, can run a 4.5 40, and can throw the ball 70 yards in the air. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like,
Unicorns.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't exist out there. Like, and it's not like, oh, go find one. Like, I hate to tell you this, but like, I'm sure there are people who are out there that do that, and most of them recently just went over to Facebook for $100 million. And then you want to buy, and you want to, pitch them a $180,000 job with some RSUs. I'm like, there's those people. They work for certain places, and their salaries are way higher than your company's last round of funding. So, you may want to think a little bit more realistically about what you can get out there. All right, because I'm still on the waiting list for a 3-bedroom apartment on Park Avenue. $4,000 a month. I've been on the waiting list now for about 17 years, and no one seems to be taking my offers.
I love it. That's hilarious. So, when it comes to running your business, what are one or two things that you've done to really move the needle in how you operate over the last year or two?
Short version, stay nimble as much as possible, but stay grounded in your roots. So the way I've looked at what has happened in the last 2 years of technology is, the best reference I can use is a hurricane has come through and has wiped out the total terrain. everything looks different except the foundation. So maybe the roof of the building got ripped off. Maybe the second floor, the windows got blown out. That storm came and it did some damage. But guess what? We still got really good roots. We still got a really good foundation. And you can rebuild on that and you can build on top of that. So core aspects of my business that I mentioned earlier are always in play. Everything else on top of that now, it's keeping the same core fundamentals, but operating now understanding that the way interactions happen are different. The way, it's something we all learned during the pandemic, right? We all had video conferencing long before we all went remote. But afterwards, it's basically 100% of the way that everyone communicates. So right. we adapted to that new style. And so I think that's the best thing I know that I've done is just like, all right, this is here. This is happening. Don't get caught up in the big shiny object. Don't start playing with stuff just to find problems it can solve. Like, no, things are running smooth. We are doing okay, not great. We're doing okay. We're doing well. Let's now trickle in some things and see if they work. And if they're working, then we can say, okay, cool. Maybe let's add something on top of that now. So kind of kind of spoon feed it nice and easy, but staying true to the roots of the company and the way we operate as an organization.
That's some great advice, great for others to hear, because if you stay true to who you are and what you're doing at the core, it's a lot easier to plug and play, and it's a lot easier to know what to say no to. We've had a lot of opportunities come up here lately that look really sexy on the surface. And if you're staying true to your core and what you're doing, if those are a good fit or not right out the gate.
And the other thing is if you stay level-headed and kind of remove yourself from an emotional standpoint of what's going on out there, you'll start to see that all of a sudden there's like 8 different products that all got launched and they all do the exact same thing. So you're like, I'm glad I didn't jump into that one just because it was emotional. Like, oh my God, we got to be first. It's like, let it all, stay calm, stay cool, let it play out. And then all of a sudden you're like, now look at all these different functions that are all doing the exact same thing. Right. And then it's, whether it's, everyone, search, right. Which again, how many AI generated emails are we going to get before someone realizes like, we probably should make something different now. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I can't even read my emails anymore. Now it's turning into spam calls. It's turning into spam texts. So again, I look at these things and I'm like, don't get lost into the shiny object. Let it play out. Stay cool, stay calm. You're gonna be fine, right? This idea of being first to market always isn't always the best idea. Like sometimes if someone wants to go blaze a trail, that's cool. But if they fall off the edge of the cliff, then at least I know how to take a different route. So you don't always have to be first. You be smartest.
Absolutely. We want to definitely avoid those cliffs. So one final question that I have for you. It's been a great conversation. I'd love to know, what's one secret that you wish you would have known as you started out as an entrepreneur?
Wow. Secrets. Buy Palantir stock really early. So no, I think I knew this. I just surround yourself with the right people. Surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. Surround yourself with people who complement the things you don't want to do. And, and trust your gut. If you want to hire someone, hire them. And if you don't, then don't. Don't hire someone because you need the seat filled, which kind of all been there before sometimes. And then you're just like, oh boy, like now I need the seat empty again as quickly as possible. So that didn't really work out for me. So then I think the other thing is I've done a really good job of it. Just stay true to yourself, stay true to your core, stay true to what you know you're doing and why you're doing it, and just stay after it, but be light on your feet, because it is definitely not a straight line. Growth is not a straight line. It's like going up. It's like walking up the stairs of the yo-yo. So
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. If our guest would like to reach out to you and learn more about your what you're working on, what's the best way for them to reach out?
so honestly, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's the easiest place. It's the social media of social medias, right, for the business case. And then our website is just averityteam.com. And my contact information is up there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for listening. If you have found today's conversation as valuable as I have, be sure to hit that like and follow button and share with somebody else that you know in business. And if you want more tips on how to grow your business between episodes, join us on Facebook at C Suite Insiders. We'd love to see you there. And until next time, keep growing and remember that you don't have to do this alone.